Boy, am I fired up for another episode of the Burnout Basketball podcast today. Thank you for those of you who listened to the first episode. I appreciate it. And thank you to anyone who is joining us now, even if you didn't hear the first one. I may have suggested in the last pod that we'd be doing a deep dive on a player that's on the Heat roster. Well, technically, I did not lie to you, but we won't be talking about someone that you've seen play yet, not in a Heat uniform at least. We're going to be talking about our first round draft pick, Kasparas Jakučionis, otherwise known as KJ, otherwise known as Casper the Friendly Ghost, otherwise known as Jakučionis, because he's bringing the mattresses out and putting these boys to sleep. At least that's what I'm expecting. I'm pretty excited about him. Today, we have a very special guest, another basketball junkie friend of mine, Jorge Larrea. Together, we'll be going through some KJ deep diving, giving you the inside scoop on what to expect from this kid and why. This is for those of you who maybe don't watch too much college hoops, like myself included. I wouldn't have known much about this kid prior to the draft, but of course, once we saw him fall to us as a 20th pick, I had to do a little research. George did some research. We feel pretty good about what we're seeing, despite what some people like KOC might be saying, and we'll get to that later. But we think Heat fans should be excited. We'll also be talking about some of the undrafted free agents that the Heat snagged right here. We've been pretty active after the draft. And we'll be talking about some trade rumors surrounding Jonathan Kuminga from the Golden State Warriors. Is he coming to the Heat? Can he be good for the Heat? Do we even want him here? Those are a lot of questions, and we'll find out what the answers are to them in just a little bit. But it does make sense with the young core, which it seems like the Heat are moving towards emphasizing with this youth movement of sorts. If you look down our roster, a lot of the older players, they're on expirings and we're looking to get rid of them. So that's another thing to be excited about. All that and more. But first off, we're going to get to an unofficial sponsor. I just want to say that this episode is brought to you by Black Tea. We're not going to say a brand name because I'm not getting paid, but I haven't had tea in quite a while. I don't know why. Just sometimes I forget about these things, and I forgot how good it was. I just made some right before this pod to get a little caffeine in, to get this energy for you all, to soothe the throat. I've been feeling a little sick the past few days, but we're still grinding. But now to my guest, George. How are you doing on this lovely day in Miami, Florida? Are you a tea guy by any chance? Let us know.
Hey, I'm doing great today. Tonight's fight night in the UFC, so it's always a great day. It's always going to be a great day when at night I'm going to be seeing some blood and violence. But other than that, I'm not really a tea person. I'm more of a coffee person. I really like Cuban coffee. I could drink Cuban coffee from 7 a.m. to midnight, and I could go to sleep or wake up at any time.
See,
Cuban coffee is better.
That's my typical go-to. I'm normally a Cuban coffee in the morning guy, but just whenever I'm feeling a little sick, like I guess because I like the coffee with milk, the café con leche, and the milk's a little thick when you have kind of a sore throat. So the tea was a nice, like, soothing approach rather than the coffee. Yeah, coffee is the go-to for sure. Is his go-to.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah. So enough about the caffeine talk. As much as I love caffeine, I could probably do a separate podcast about that. We're going to be starting off with what I mentioned I'm pretty excited about, with the 20th pick in the NBA draft. Yeah, you heard that right. That's the draft bell. The Miami Heat select Kasper Jakučionis, originally from Lithuania. Love these Eastern Europeans. He played in Barcelona, and then he played for Illinois. He averaged 15, 5.7, and 4.7, almost a steal a game, 44% from the field and 31.8% from three. However, he did have a pretty good free throw percentage at 84.5. The yikes number that we do see here is he did average 3.7 turnovers a game, which is pretty close to the amount of assists he was getting a game. But the advanced stats, they still like him. He has a 5.4 box plus minus. He has a 59% true shooting percentage. He's a 12.3 net rating, which means when he was on the court, in general, Illinois was playing better than when he was off the court. And he averaged 64.5% at the rim, which is pretty great. He is a large point guard. He's 6'6" with a 6'8" wingspan. You love to see players who have a wingspan more than their height. Tyler Hero is one of those players who does not. He got the short arms, so it's cool to be able to have someone who maybe will be able to pan out as a good defender. But George, what did you see when you were watching him? What stood out to you? What are you excited about?
Well, I think it's about damn time, instead of going small in a point guard or small in big man, we go big in point guard. I think Spoelstra could really benefit from somebody like Kasparas. something that you mentioned, well, I don't think you mentioned, but it was in the notes earlier, is his step back. The step back that this guy has, just his ability, his feel for the game is what I really like. But something that Miami needs is someone that can create their own shot. And although he's not the best at creating his own shot without a screen, typically he still has the ability to, maybe he doesn't have the shot, but he can make the pass or the, in reference, hockey assist to then lead to points. I think Kasparas is the point guard that the Miami Heat need for the future. Now he's young. I'm not sure if he's going to start right off the bat. I would like for him to start. I want him to get as many reps. I want him to throw 100 lobs. I want him to get 1,000 turnovers. I don't care. Just get it out of the way your rookie season, get the feel out for it. And this is a guy who's going to benefit off having someone like Bam Adebayo in a pick and roll. He's going to benefit off having people like Tyler Hero. Maybe he's going to still have Duncan Robinson or other shooters off the floor. If you have shooters around this guy and a big man that can roll, you're going to the promised land. Now, of course, he's not a perfect prospect. He has his flaws, but so does every other prospect. I'm not really sure what it's going to look like with him in the backcourt, in the defensive end with Tyler Hero, but he at least has the intangibles. I like to talk about that a lot, intangibles. You don't necessarily need to have the talent, but if you have just the tools, he's 6'5". He's going to be bigger than most point guards. He's he's jacked, like you said, so he's got the strength to really put his body on players. So even kind of like Jovic. Jovic isn't a great defender, but he got the intangibles to be a great defender. So I'm very excited to see not just a point guard, but like you said, European. I love European players. Why? Because in Europe, they play so rough. They play so physical. And when you watch him play, you get that sense where he's kind of like playing at his own pace. It's not that he's Luka Doncic or Goran Dragic, but similar to them. He plays at that pace.
I was going to bring that up. He's got that like almost bouncy flow to his game. It's a similar in the thing you see from Luka. Of course, again, neither of us are trying to say this kid's going to be Luka. I don't think it's fair whenever anyone's doing draft comps and they're like, this guy kind of plays like KG, but he shoots like Steph. It's like, okay, dude, like no one knows what any of these rookies are going to pan out to.
That's a little,
you don't know. Like anybody could do anything, so you don't want to say that and put that on them. But he does have a little bit of that like nice stop and go action. Like to what you were saying, George, he wasn't that great at necessarily creating his own shot without a screener. He did have the step back, which was one of his go-tos, which was nice. So if he could still hit that shot in the league, it's going to be nice. But watching some of the clips and of course just reading about him, the passing was really what just stood out to me, because he was very creative as a passer. And that's why I'm like, sure, if he's getting turnovers, it's going to happen, especially if you're young. He's 18. But creative passes, to be able to have someone who could throw lobs or just open cuts, like to open cutters to a Bam, to a Ware, to a Tyler, it just puts a lot of more action into our Heat offense. And being a Heat junkie for a while now, I feel like we've missed that. Our Heat offense, even in our like prime with Jimmy, wasn't the most beautiful offense necessarily. Sometimes it was just like Jimmy go out there, get fouled, go like run at them. We didn't have a lot of like the beautiful game offense that you would necessarily see from maybe some other teams. It was a grinded out, low scoring wins was like our go-to. So someone who can maybe see the floor in a different way. And again, being 6'6" at point guard is huge and awesome. If we can be playing this huge lineup where Tyler is maybe our smallest guy at the shooting guard, I think that's super fun. And to what you mentioned, like, yeah, he is jacked, which is odd to say and odd to see at 18-year-old players. I feel like most young college players you see are kind of like chubby or stubby or the opposite. They're like lanky and not built out. But this kid's like, he's been hitting the weight room, which is exciting because that just shows, and it even shows in the way he plays, that he can kind of finish through contact. He likes to play a physical game. He's more of an athlete than you'd expect. When you're looking at his combine stats, he actually has a higher vert than Ace Bailey, who's been touted as like one of the most athletic prospects of this draft, even though Ace Bailey has his other things that stand out more than Jakučionis. I'm not trying to compare one another, but just in terms of athleticism, he's got a 35-inch vert, which is just under what Cooper Flagg's doing. He's got a standing vert of 28.5 inches, which again is higher than Ace, but just under Cooper. His lane agility time, which, shows some of that lateral movement, which you'd hope translates into him being a defensive player, is right in the middle of the pack. It's higher than Dylan Harper, just barely off Ace Bailey. So a lot of his stats, even his shuttle run, he was in the top 10, which is more lateral movement. He's a pretty fast, pretty high jumping, mobile player. Something we did see when you were looking at him that you don't know, I'd hope at least that this was making a big difference for him, is he had a forearm injury that was nagging him for about half the season. So if you cut him off from like the January 6th mark, I think January 8th was the first game he missed with that forearm injury. And then he played from January 14th on with it. Before the injury, he was shooting 41% from three and 47% from the floor. And again, we saw those season total numbers was 31.8% from. So that just goes to show how much of a drop off he had after that injury. If before it, he was shooting 41% and the total after the injury is 31.8. So now, again, you don't expect necessarily to be hitting a 40% shot rookie year, but if he's in the high 30s, that's great. It gives more spacing for the team. It gives more room for Bam and Ware to work. Also, I'm pretty disheartened that you didn't mention this, George, but as I was doing this research, he's also a Gemini, which, as a Gemini myself, that means great things. I'm not a big horoscope guy at all, but all that matters to me is that someone else like me is a Gemini and he's playing on the team. So I'm already jacked up on this guy. I don't know if you have a Gemini bias like some other people, but I'm excited about it.
No, not necessarily, but I definitely do have Kasparas bias. Before the forearm injury, he's been on my radar since the beginning of the college season. I like to look at the top freshmen. I think his plan was to dominate more than he did, essentially. But obviously, when you have a forearm injury, you're a point guard. And I'm not sure if it was a shooting arm necessarily or whatnot, but it affects everything. It affects passing. It affects defense. It affects, even your stamina. You're dealing with pain all game. You're not going to be able to exert 100% of your energy. What I do think the Miami Heat need to take advantage of is whatever Eric Spoelstra has plans to do with him to run it in this summer league, which I know we're going to be talking about later. Yeah. But I think he has an excellent opportunity, especially with our one of our undrafted free agent pickups, who plays exactly like number 13 in Illinois, where they kind of have they run the similar sets. They kind of run, they set good screens, they cut, and I just have a really good feeling about Kasparas and his fit. And not just the pick and roll, but his ability to exploit teams in the pick and roll at a high level off his rookie year. I just think that he has how do I explain it? He just has an edge.
Yeah, and I think
playing in Europe.
He's playing in Europe, and I think people overrate necessarily the ability to take someone off the first step when you're looking at these young players. Because at the end of the day, like the NBA is filled with such super athletes that only like the cream of the crop are really taking people off their first step dribble. Like that is not a common thing that you're going to be expecting from a young prospect. So the fact that he's good in the pick and roll to me is more important than if he's able to create with a quick burst to the rim because of his first step. Yeah. I'd rather see him, and he has a built-in pick and roll partner in Bam and Ware. Like I'd rather see that action than worry about necessarily him having to do this very quick off the dribble, dives to the rim. So, but let me just mention.
Just expand a little bit on the pick and roll point. A lot of people will also think it's just pick and roll and him being able to hand it off. It's also the pick and roll happening, the defense switching on that, and Kasparas actually has a really good ability of reading that and attacking. So it's like, okay, they pick up my big man. Well, it's one-on-one. Now I'm going to take this guy to the basket. And since he has that Euro style, cats are expecting him to go up. So he jump, people jump immediately. He has great pump fake and great footwork down low. So he's not just a threat passing in the pick and roll. He's a threat to go put a bucket on you.
Yeah, I think to your point, it's almost, again, I'm making a comparison to a player that we would be more than incredibly lucky for him to become. But it gives me some of the vibes of SGA watching him and Tyrese Halliburton, where the pass is such a threat that it gets him better looks at the rim because he can fake a little dump, he can fake a little look to the left, and all of a sudden these players are either jumping or they're turning around, and then he's got an open shot all of a sudden. And cherry on top of all this, not gameplay, but he does speak Spanish. I know the Heat have been kind of making a big deal about this, but it's always exciting whenever you get a Spanish-speaking player down to Miami, Florida. I think we're, probably one of the top Spanish-speaking markets in the league, aside from LA and maybe some of the Texas towns. So I think Heat fans are going to love him. Despite what I'm about to get into, there are some people, George, I don't know if you're aware of this, some people who think that he wasn't a great pickup for the league. You're not going to see it here, but the people watching along will see it. I'm sharing the exact quote from Kevin O'Connor here. I'm going to read it for you all, and I'm going to ask you to respond to this after, George. Is Pat Riley washed? I think Pat Riley is a detriment to the Heat at this point with his decisions in recent years, said Kevin O'Connor. They are in the worst place, stuck in the middle, and that's in large part due to Pat Riley's insistence on winning games. So I didn't know that was bad. But you're not winning enough. he said to the Yahoo Sports NBA Draft Live show. He then gave to the Heat a D+ for drafting Kasparas Jakučionis with the 20th pick. So with the Heat, he continues to say, we talked about earlier some of the questions about what's going on there. What's the direction of the franchise? What are the priorities that plays into Jakučionis with that draft grade? Ultimately, could be a good player. He could be. But I just think that with the Miami Heat, that's where I have my biggest concerns. And real quick, before you hop in and say what you got to say, I just want to point out, and I'm sharing it again, he had us a D+. He gave us the worst night of the draft. He said we did the worst out of anyone. You can see here on the screen. And it was odd for me, just for me specifically, because when you look at Kevin O'Connor's own draft board, which I'm sharing on the screen here, he had him ranked at 14. So, I will give him some benefit of the doubt here, some credit that a lot of the other draft guys had him in the 7 to 10 range, some others in like the early teen range. Kevin O'Connor was maybe one of the people who had him a little further back at 14. But I don't see how picking up a player who you ranked at 14 and getting him at 20 would be a bad thing, at least to me. And one of the comps that O'Connor had here, and we love our Europeans, was Goran Dragic. And as a Heat fan, how could you put that comp and not expect Heat fans to be excited about it? So, George, I now ask you, what do you think about what Kevin O'Connor said? Do you agree with him? How do you feel about this?
If you had those little charts right now, I'd strongly disagree with the point of view, especially with the draft grade. I'm not sure what he's grading this on, because if it's based on what we need a point guard, because I'm not sure if Kevin O'Connor is aware. We have a gambling addict at point guard. I'm sorry, Terry Rozier has an open case right now, and with a betting scandal that he's not guilty of, but he's being charged.
We don't know.
And then Davion Mitchell is a restricted free agent, which we can sign. Okay, so I'll give it to you. Let's say we have Davion Mitchell. What are we going to draft? A center? What are we going to draft? A power forward? A small forward? A guard? No. I get it. Walter Clayton wasn't on the board. So what did he think? If we drafted Walter Clayton Jr., what was our grade going to be? Yeah. A C- because we picked Walter Clayton Jr. I give our grade an A. Just one, it's a steal. I mean, he shouldn't have been there. I admit, I was not watching the draft live, so I had no idea he was there.
Yeah.
And when you guys texted in the group chat that we got Kasper, I didn't know that that's what you guys called him. I know him as Kasparas, and then when I searched it up, I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. We just did something here. So no, I really disagree. This is a great fit for Miami. I don't know what direction they're going, but if you're telling me that Nikola Jovic wasn't traded for Kevin Durant because you're trying to put him in a big old package to go get Giannis, Kasparas the perfect partner to put next to Giannis Antetokounmpo, especially for them to learn.
He's the perfect partner to put here, because even as you're mentioning with Mitchell, sure, Mitchell can play the point, but he's not a creator in the way that you would hope. He's not a facilitator, rather, in the way that you would hope from a starting point guard. Yeah, I think in an ideal world, Mitchell is a heavily played bench player, averaging 20 minutes a game, but on the bench, not in a starting unit. He's 26 years old. And then also part of the direction, and I've had my own complaints about Pat Riley and some of the stuff we've made, but I think for once, Pat Riley and the organization's finally realizing that we're not ready to win big yet, and it's easy to discount because we had a bad year this last year, but we were in the finals just a couple of years ago and in the finals again just a couple of years before that. Sure, we didn't win, but not a lot of teams make to the finals. So I don't know what the issue is that we're taking a couple of years to retool, especially with a young point guard with a high upside. If he's half as good as we're hoping him to be, it's going to be an exciting player. You take the best player available in the draft when you get a chance like this, when you're a rebuilding team. And for what everyone says, pretty much, aside from Kevin O'Connor, and he would agree too, he was the best player available left in the draft, and he also fit the team perfectly with the needs. Thankfully for us, KOC seems to be one of the only people who felt this way, as we look at like what some of the other scouts and draft boards said, and some of the stuff we already hit on. But the strengths with Jakučionis is the passing, the playmaking, the pick and roll play, the step backs, the shot making, the craft at his size. He's got some really nice behind the back passes, the skip passes with either hand, the passes in tight windows through that pick and roll. He can find that small moment to make that pass, so the bounce pass, so a cutter. He plays through contact at a high level. Of course, to KOC's point, there are improvement areas, as there are with most young draft players. But there's something to note that I think people maybe take for granted, and we don't know necessarily how big of a deal it makes, but the NCAA is getting older than it ever has been. In 2019, before the pandemic, the average age of Sweet 16 players was 20.8. Now it's 21.6, so closer to 22 years of age. 10 years ago, no player in the Sweet 16 was over 22. And I know those ages seem fairly close, but, you know, like in the league, if you're comparing a 28-year-old to a 32-year-old, those are fairly close numbers. You're not expecting huge differences. But when you're comparing an 18-year-old to a 22-year-old, the body difference is tremendous. It can't be discounted when you're a point guard, especially someone with a high usage rate like Jakučionis had, playing against people who are men. When at 18, I mean, legally you're a man, but you're a kid. At 18-year-old is a kid, you have a kid body, and you're playing against people who have been playing for much longer than you, who are much stronger than you most of the time. So I'm not too worried about the turnovers just yet. I think he's creative. I also think the assist numbers would be much higher. When I was going back and watching some of the film, there were so many passes he got to an open shooter that just bricked. And that's part of college ball, right? Like, no one is that great at shooting, especially not on, they're more spread out. So I think when you're in an NBA roster, passing out to Tyler Hero rather than the fourth or fifth guy on Illinois, you're going to be getting more assists.
No, and to your point about the turnovers, I think it's also disingenuous that people don't mention that not only is he high on turnovers, but he moved from a different country to the United. Like, he went from Lithuania to Spain, and then from Spain back over here to the United States in a college program for the very first time. He's never played American basketball. This is his very first time playing high-paced offense. It's the very first time that this guy watch dudes dunk the ball the way that they've, the way he's never seen in his life. No disrespect to Euroball, but that just doesn't happen in European basketball because their focus is more team play, more moving the ball around, finding the open shot, being able to play through contact. In America, it's get the ball, get going on the fast break. And I think that's something that's going to benefit him in the long run. The fact that he has that Euro experience, and all he has to do is just adjust to American basketball. But there's no way that Pat Riley would take him at 20, especially in the first round, if he didn't feel like this kid would be able to adjust, which I know he's going to adjust. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when will he adjust. Will it be after midway through his rookie season? Will it be after his rookie season in his second year? I'm not sure, but I have my ceiling is high on him. A lot of people, I saw one comparison to Tyrese Halliburton, and if he's Tyrese Halliburton, we're winning an NBA championship. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, man, if he's 80% of Tyrese Halliburton was tremendous this past year. Dude, there's going to be some growing pains with this kid. There's always growing pains with point guards. It's typical. And like to what you were mentioning before, if I had to make a bet, I don't think he's going to be starting to start the year. Spo doesn't really usually start rookies. He makes them earn their spot. We do have a little bit of a different team, different goals this year. So maybe he will throw him into the fire early, which I'd be excited for. But nonetheless, I'm sure he's going to get his runways at some point in the year, whether it's at the beginning or later. And for everyone to be prepared for it, I am sure some of those turnovers are going to happen again in the NBA. I'm sure he's going to have some bad turnover games. He's a rookie point guard. It's probably one of the hardest positions for a rookie when you're a pass-first point guard to adapt into a league that's much faster, much more athletic, that just knows more of the game than you do at that age. So there's going to be mistakes. It's going to happen, but you have to let someone be able to kind of grow through those mistakes and learn through them so that eventually, maybe 2-3 years down the line, those turnovers are way down, but the creative passes are still there. Imagine if when Luka was 16, they told him, hey man, don't try those behind the back passes, those over the head, no look passes. Don't try them. They lead to turnovers. We would have been robbed of greatness, of excitement on the court if people didn't try to make those creative plays. And then defensively too, I did read from a scout's report, and this is a direct quote, not blessed laterally, but the effort was always there. And that's an interesting quote because it's great to see that the effort was there. Obviously, you want a player with a high motor, which he seems to have by all means, but at his combine, his lateral movement wasn't bad by any means. So again, to your point, George, maybe the lateral movement in game when they were grinding tape and they made that assessment was more due to the fact that, one, he had a really high usage rating, so he was pounding the ball on offense. He was really like most of Illinois' offense. And then 2, he had a nagging injury, which I know your arm doesn't have anything to do with your legs, but still, when you're in pain, anybody who's played a sport through pain, it affects more than just that one thing, especially when you're young, especially when you're playing against people who are much bigger than you. And when that's an arm that you use to defend or to push off with, it weighs on you. So even then, I'm pretty excited about him as a defensive starter. I hate to get into some of the ceiling stuff I read when people say his ceiling is a top 70 player or, Ty Jerome or D'Angelo Russell or Potts. Like, look, at the end of the day, the draft is a freaking crapshoot. No one knows what anyone's ceiling is. Jokic was drafted in the second round during a Taco Bell commercial. So, again, I'm not trying to say that this guy is going to be the best player we've ever seen. I don't know if we're going to be hanging his jerseys in the rafters, but you have to agree, right, George? Like, at the end of the day, it's all a gamble with the draft.
You never know. You can look at Anthony Bennett. Anthony Bennett literally looked like a powerhouse. I mean, he did. His tape was good. I would not have taken him first overall.
But a lot of people did. A lot of people would have.
Yeah, a lot of people would have. And I mean, it's just a matter of fit. It's a matter of the system. It's a matter of player. It's a matter of. If I told you in 2020, I sat you down and I said, Zion Williamson will not be the face of the NBA in 2025, you would have looked at me like I'm nuts.
Has Zion Williamson played a playoff game yet? I don't think so, right? He's played play-in games.
I think he played like a play-in or something. I was working in Champs in Solon, Ohio, and I was working in I'll never forget the cashier. Everybody in there was telling me about Zion, and I'm literally like, guys, Luka Doncic is in the NBA. Forget about Zion. Yeah. And they're like, he can jump out the gym. I'm like, dude, them knees are going to break, and all his body has done is break down. It's unfortunate. I wish I wasn't right.
Yeah.
But like you could see it from this guy, his build and stuff. And Zion Williamson, for all intents and purposes, was amazing at Duke.
Yeah.
But the tape before that is just him dunking on 5'5" white kids.
No, and to Zion's defense, when you
LeBron James said it,
yeah.
Like
when you see him play, like whenever he has been healthy, he's a freak of nature on the court. He truly is.
Exactly. But yeah, and that's to your point of it being a crapshoot. Like, look at Portland. Portland ends up with Damian Lillard. They picked Damian Lillard out of Weber State, and this guy is one of the best players to ever touch a basketball. Yeah. Stephen Curry at Davidson. I mean, you just never know.
I was going to include this a second later, but you already jumped into it, and it makes sense, so I'm going to reference it. These are just, again, some players, some notable names, not a lot, and I also avoided naming Euros. For the most part, there's 1 Euro on this list, just because our ability to draft Euros and foreign players in general has gotten way better now with the expansion of the NBA, the more money in the NBA, the cameras and phones in general. So like in the 1990s, it was pretty much impossible to get a good scouting report and a good Euro as compared to now in the 2020s. But just some interesting draft picks that have happened. And I started just from 7 and later because, this guy, the highest people had him was at 7. The lowest most people had him was at 14. Tim Hardaway, I don't know if Heat fans know him. I think most of them do. He was drafted 14th. That's not what you'd expect. Sean Kemp, 17th in the same draft. Kobe, what do you think Kobe was? He was the 13th pick. Kobe Bryant. Steve Nash, 15th pick. T-Mac, 9. Dirk, 9. Paul Pierce, 10 in the same draft. So Dirk, then Paul Pierce. Iguodala, number 9. Rondo was the 21st pick. Lowry was the 24th pick. And the list goes on. Other starters that were 7 and later, like you just mentioned, Steph Curry, DeRozan, Drew Holiday, Jeff Teague, Gordon Hayward, Paul George, Kemba, Clay, Kawhi, Jimmy Butler, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Bam, Tyler, SGA. All those players were drafted 7 and later. Yeah. You don't know what these guys are going to be until they get out there. I mean, even as I look at this name, and that one was interesting to me, Rondo at 21. This guy's as good as prime Rondo at any point in time. Like, playoff Rondo was crazy to watch. It's probably underrated to watch. He was a facilitating madman. Like, it was.
Yeah, and coaching matters too. I think systems matter. People don't take that into account. Yeah. I was the president, founder, and probably the only member of the Free Andrew Wiggins Club.
Yeah, me too.
And I vote. When he landed in Golden State, I was like, this is where he should have been from the start. Even if it was behind Kevin Durant his whole career, whatever, it didn't matter. Andrew Wiggins should have been with Steve Kerr. That was his guy, which we'll talk about it later. He'll probably end up back there. But
yeah, he might.
That's kind of, that's the thing. That's a first overall pick, rookie of the year. This guy's a dominant force. and his career just goes nowhere because he's in a team that goes nowhere.
Your system matters so much, even in good programs necessarily. Like very recent, Neesmith on the Pacers, he was on the Celtics, a good organization by any means. They didn't think he was worth anything, and they kind of just gave him away to the Pacers. And I saw the Knicks game. I mean, I saw the whole playoffs just like you did. Neesmith was a man. He was awesome out there. And again, the Celtics, maybe they were using him wrong. Maybe he just developed one summer to the next and it was unexpected. But it really is a lot of like where you are and how you fit there and the combination of those two things. And then your own ability to grind and how much of a hard worker you are, how much you want it. And then injuries is a whole nother aspect of it on how good your body is at the end of the day. Just before we close the loop on this, KJ talk, which I've been enjoying. I'm so excited to watch him play. Just a few other more exciting and optimistic points of views from other scouts and other NBA draft guides. The Ringer's J. Kyle Mann had him at number 7 in the draft. Again, one of the higher people. He comped him to Bogey and Dinwiddie, which both those are great players. Even if this guy ends up only being as good as Spencer Dinwiddie. Spencer Dinwiddie had a long NBA career. A quote that I thought was interesting. Sorry, I already mentioned it. He knows what the defense is doing. He instinctively knows how to respond to whatever the defense is doing and is best in this draft at it. So he's one of the best passers in this draft. I think one of the people that people have been saying is better than him at it maybe is Igor Demin, another, well, he's Russian, almost Eastern European, but another foreign player. So he wouldn't sweat the turnovers. CBS's Adam Finkelstein had him at number 9 in the draft. In a quote from him, "You just put a chip on this guy's shoulder and sent him to the Miami Heat. This is terrific value. If you're a Heat fan, you're ecstatic about this. They're rebuilding without bottoming out. They're not interested in tanking. Thank you, Adam Finkelstein from CBS. We had Bleacher Report had him at 11, said one of the best ball movers in this class. That was Jonathan Wasserman. And SB Nation's Rocky O'Donnell had him at 9. And this was a really interesting one. This isn't a good thing necessarily or a bad thing. I just wrote it in all caps. He only dunked once his whole college basketball season. So I don't know what to make of that. He's 6'6". Maybe it was the forearm, but when I read that, it made me stop for a moment. I'm like, he only dunked one time? Which leads me into a quote, which got me super excited, that Kasparas Jakučionis said himself. He likes to watch Luka Doncic's playmaking and how he creates shots for himself. I like Andrew Nembhard's defense, he says, how he gives 100%, active hands and cares about defense, and I like Jalen Brunson's 2-feet game. That, to me, means that he's taking inspiration from the right kind of players. To say Andrew Nembhard's defense, I mean, obviously it's very present right now watching the playoffs, but that was exciting to hear from me. How did you feel hearing that quote? Or did you know of it before I just said it, George?
Actually, I was going to mention earlier that I feel like if you ask Kasparas if he's seen Luka Doncic play and if he takes from his style, I feel like he would say yes. Because that's kind of where the step back, I feel like, comes from, just pulling the trigger. That is a young Luka. Just, I have an inch of separation. I can have 3, and then he just steps back.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that and the playmaking ability, you clearly see, not just in Europe did he play that way, but in Illinois, he really tried to bring that style. And I think maybe that also causes turnovers. Maybe sometimes he's trying to create too much, which isn't a bad thing. It's good. That's what I want. I'd rather a player try than not try. You know, I've seen Norris Cole. I've seen Mario Chalmers. The first point guard I ever watched play for the Miami Heat was Jason Williams. And ever since then, I've gone through straight, no point guards.
Yeah.
I saw LeBron do it for a couple of years, but it's not a real point guard. Then I got to experience Kyle Lowry. That was
he gave us
whatever.
Like one decent year. Yeah.
He was all right. He was all right. But he's not what we need. What I need is exactly that. I need a guy, a grown man, 6'5", playing point guard, to just bully these these other point guards and just give me a lot of assists. That's what. Oh, sorry. I don't know if we're supposed to curse.
No, you can curse. You can curse. If I'm censoring myself, it's just because I'm a nerd.
Oh no, I was gonna say. Yeah, I just need him to get me. Like, that's my vision for Kasparas, is he's gonna average 10 assists a season. I really do. If he gets the minutes, he's gonna do it.
Dude, if at the end of his rookie year he has 8, I'd be pretty excited about that. But moving on from Kasparas for now, we're gonna talk about some undrafted free agents. We didn't have a second round pick in this draft, so we did make a lot of moves as far as undrafted free agent signings, as the Heat always do, and that's why. To a listener, you might be wondering, you guys are going to talk about undrafted guys? we're not going to talk about them as in depth as we just talked about KJ, but just to remind you all, just some Heat players who were undrafted that you might have forgotten because it's been a while. Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Haywood Highsmith, Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent, Drew Smith, Orlando Robinson, and even the OG himself, UD, were all undrafted guys by the Heat who ended up being impact players, some of which have even continued to be impact players on other teams. So, George, when you were going through these undrafted free agents, what were you feeling? Who stood out to you?
I didn't really. Okay, I like the pickup of 3 big men, a forward and a guard, and I was really interested when I was watching, kind of looking over the tape, who exactly was going to stand out to me, and I didn't think either of them would, because they're just undrafted free agents. If 60 times they were passed up on, more likely than not, it was for a reason. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's true most of the time.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of potential in, and I'm not talking about superstar potential. Potential doesn't always have to be like superstar. I'm just talking about a great NBA player.
Yeah,
and,
none of the names I listed before are superstars, but they're, some of them have had decent careers.
They're great. Yeah. They're contributors. They're going to be contributors in the league, whether they're not on the Miami Heat or not. But I feel like Vlad Goldin and Steve Settle III are going to be 2 impact players. I'm going to just list a couple of reasons why. First of all, they're the 2 dream players I want around Kasparas right now. Like 2 guys that can jump, pick and roll, dunk, oh my God, it's going to be so nice in the summer league. We'll talk about that. But Vlad Goldin specifically, he's 7 foot, finally, hallelujah, right, a real center, a man that walks at 5 miles per hour and can still block everything in sight. That's exactly what I need. I love his touch around the rim. He has a great touch. Every time he gets the ball and he's posting up, he's patient. He's not rushing anything. He's not trying to turn around and dunk it on you. If he does turn around and dunk it on you, good. But most of the time, he's looking for that post hook, which I think it's going to be a real weapon for him in the NBA because you don't see that a lot. Unless you're guarding Nikola Jokic, you're not seeing post hooks.
No, not
You're seeing jumpers, you're seeing up and unders, or you're just seeing guys being flat out athletic, facing you up and blowing right past you.
Yeah.
But Vlad, strong screener. I mean, thank goodness, a guy that can put a screen. And exactly, he's huge and he's a lob threat. So what I see him inserting himself in is that backup role for Kel'el Ware. This is a guy that can also relieve pressure off Bam Adebayo because he's such a good shot blocker. Like, it's not because he's big. He knows and he understands. When I'm watching the tape, he's kind of like, he instinctively knows when a guy's going to go for a shot, and that's when he jumps. He doesn't really make a lot of defensive mistakes. I'm talking about around the rim. And at, what is it, 7 feet, right?
7'1", yeah, they have him listed at.
7'1", and I didn't get his exact wingspan, but anytime he puts both hands up, it's going to be a tough day for anybody to finish at the rim.
Well, something I thought that was interesting when I saw they listed that he had one of the largest hand sizes in combine history. So he just has giant hands, which is maybe what's helping him on some of those post touches and getting those finishes, and he could just grip the ball maybe a little bit different than other people can, get blocks a little bit easier than other people can. And they did Hoops Hype mention this in their evaluation of him, that he was an elite at-rim finisher, a strong screener, and my favorite part, honestly, plays with visible emotion and effort. And I love that. If you play like that, that shows that you care and that you're trying and that you will continue to care and try when you're trying to improve your game. So he is 24 years old. Most of these, most undrafted guys aren't 18, 19 years old. They're a little bit on the older side. So again, like what George is saying, you're not going to expect them to turn into superstars, but if he could be good for us, it'd be exciting. I am excited to see him in the summer league and playing next to Kasparas. What about Steve Settle?
Steve Settle stands out a lot. He's a small forward, but I think he has the potential to be like a point forward. He's really athletic. He also has a real just his athleticism allows him so much on defense. This guy just makes a mistake, bites on a pump fake, lands, and then springs back up and gets another block. Gets the block initially. I really like his ability in isolation. He's really good in isos. He doesn't have like the best handle in the world, but he just has an ability to create space and the speed to blow by people. Man, he just jumps out. Like, he literally jumps out of the screen. I'm watching him on my TV. My TV's almost falling off. This dude's just jamming it everywhere.
He is athletic.
He's athletic. And what really excites me is that shooting. Now, the jumper, I'm not so happy about it, but Tyrese Halliburton exists, so hallelujah.
Yeah.
He should be. I did see a stat. He's 65% on catch and shoot threes.
Wow.
So please give me that. That's exactly what I need. You know who that's perfect for? Starts with a K and ends with an S.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's another thing I saw about his 3-point shooting, which is really interesting to me. Two things on that. One is that he's 6'10", he's very tall, but he only weighs 192 pounds. So he's definitely going to need to put some meat on those bones, get the Cuban food in his system, some arroz con some type of meat, in there. But he shot 41.6 from three just in general, not just catch and shoot, on 3.6 attempts per game, which is a decent amount for a large power forward, small forward. But for his career in college, so the 3 years prior to this, he only shot 33.9% from three. So his senior year, I don't know what happened to him, where what'd you say, 65% on catch and shoot and 41.6% just in general from three. Did he just strike lightning for a year? Or did he find something? Did he work on his shot and it's just happening now? So that's what was interesting to me. And I'm excited for him too, because if he can shoot the ball and even half as good as it seems like he's shooting it, going to have a place in the league if you're 6'10" and you could shoot 40% from three. Like, that's just, there's not a lot of those type of guys.
And I think there was a theme in this draft. Maybe I'm wrong. I would love for somebody to ask them, if they had a theme where they wanted to chase after big guys. It doesn't necessarily have to be like giant Jack, but like Kasparas, an oversized point guard. Vagodin, although undrafted free agent, a very big, tall center, long. Steve Settle. Have you seen Steve Settle, bro? He literally looks like a long stick.
Yeah.
Just freaking, like, I would love to see him just like at the apex, blocking a shot, So I think that the Miami Heat made a very big emphasis on looking for size in this draft. And I think that this is gonna be fun, Summer League. I'm really excited for this Summer League. I haven't been excited for Summer League in a while, but this one,
we could be back-to-back Summer League champs. Who knows? Don't count us out on the Summer League champs.
Oh, yeah.
And then just some of the other undrafted free agents we got here, just to touch on them for a moment. And I might ruin these guys' names, so I apologize to all of you. I will learn your names if you make it to the roster ultimately. We have Omar Ballo, who is a center from Indiana. He's 6'10", 260 pounds with a 7'6" wingspan. So again, he is a giant. One scouting report said that he is a brute force in the paint. Ballo is built like a young Eddie Curry, but with a bit more talent. Not much of a vertical athlete, but his length helps him play above the rim, and his wide base clears space in the lane. This was from NBA Draft Room. They also compared him to a slower Thomas Bryant, which is not the most exciting, but they did say he had a high motor. We had Dane Danger at center from Memphis. He is 6'9", 271 pounds. Limited roles prior to Memphis, but at Memphis he averaged 14.6, 7.4, and 1.7, and he shot 61.5% from the field. Sports Illustrated said he had surprising ball handling for someone of his size. And last but possibly not least, Marcus Williams is the smallest person that we took in undrafted free agency. He's a 6'2" guard from San Francisco. He is 22. He has a 48% field goal rate and a 41.4% from three. The scouts said that he's not an elite athlete, but he's above average at pretty much everything. So he's just one of those players who's solid at a lot of things, but not a standout at most. That is hard when you're in the NBA and you're small. Cooper Flag gets that same kind of comparison, but he's more like outstanding at everything and not like perfect at anything is more of his thing. Usually need to have at least one or two breakout skills to earn your spot on a roster, but still interested to see him at 6'2", shooting 41.4% from three and 48 overall. I think he could be fun to watch as we get into the Summer League. But what you and I think are really excited about, more excited about than the undrafted free agency, is some of the rumors that are flying around here about a possible trade the Heat are looking to make. And no, we're not talking Giannis, not that, not yet. But Jonathan Kuminga, he was drafted in 2021 as the 7th pick, so he's still fairly young. He'll be 23 years old this season. He's a 6'7" power forward. He has stated pretty clearly that he wants to be more of a pick and roll player, and that's not what the Warriors do. He's very confident in his game, maybe too confident in his ability to be a star. There's some questions around maybe if his confidence and thus his play was ruined a little bit by the way Kerr was treating him this past season with very inconsistent minutes and sidelining him in the playoffs. Ultimately, as we were talking about before, is he just not meant for that system? The Steph Curry system, the Draymond Green system is a unique one that not every player is cut out for. So, George, what do you think about Kuminga? And ultimately, do you want him on the Heat?
I would like Jonathan Kuminga on the Heat. Now, I understand a lot of people have a lot of skepticism about Tyler Hero. I'm of the belief if Jonathan Kuminga were to come in, you probably don't plan on re-signing Hero to a max extension because Jonathan Kuminga is going to make $30 million a year. And as some people pointed out, Kuminga, Hero, Bam, that doesn't really take you anywhere. But I'd rather bet on the 22-year-old that's a two-way player. What I really like about Jonathan Kuminga, he's got great handles. And one thing people make fun of me. They're like, oh, he wants to be in the pick and roll. Yeah, guys, because he's really good in the pick and roll. Like when he's in the pick and roll, he has a good sense of it. He's not the best passer, but he's going to score off the pick and roll, which is very important. He can kind of shoot the three. He's really good defensively. And once again, intangibles. Jonathan Kuminga has all the intangibles to be a superstar, not a star, a superstar. When I watch his game, he reminds me of like a young Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
And people call me crazy, but a young Jimmy Butler that didn't really have it all figured out, but he was just kind of on the cusp of getting there. And it's hard to do that when you've got a guy like Stephen Curry as the center of attention on your team. And Steve Kerr, for what it's worth, if he doesn't want to play you, he's not going to play you. He's proven that to many players. When it didn't work with Chris Paul stopped playing. Things like that happen. So if he's in Miami, I would like to see Tyler move, but in the context of what we're speaking now, Tyler's on the team. I still think it's a great fit because it masks some of the deficiencies that Tyler Hero has on the defensive end, especially if Kasparas isn't going to start and you have, thankfully, we signed Davion Mitchell. If we have Davion Mitchell, then you don't really have to worry about too much defense. Davion Mitchell, Jonathan Kuminga, Khalil Ware, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero can't guard a cone. That's fine. We got 4 of the guys that can do it. Yeah. Another thing that I don't think is emphasized enough is the coaching in Miami, the improvement in Miami. Miami has picked up a bunch of undrafted free agents and a bunch of players, and people kill me when I say this. Guys come here, have their best years. Look at Gabe Vincent. Guys come here, have their best years. Look at Max Strus. Best years of their career. They leave here and they play completely different. They get cashed out, and that's it. It's like they lost all their magic.
Strus did play decent on the Cavs, but I do see your point. It is a very common theme. Look at Caleb Martin.
Look at Caleb Martin. Look at PJ Tucker. What is all respects possible. PJ Tucker played great when he was here, but after he left, he's been trying to do nothing but get back.
Yeah, he wants his way back here. The system works for some players more than it works for others. And to your point, I don't know where this team goes if we ultimately were to pay him, Tyler, and Bam, as much as they all want to get paid. Kuminga had turned down a 5-year, $150 million deal that's $30 a year. So you're wondering, how much does this guy want to get paid? What does he expect? Maybe he's looking to take a short-term deal as a more of a bet on himself kind of thing, which I could be talked into since we still have Tyler under contract for a couple more years before Tyler's extension would ultimately kick in. So if we do like a 2-year deal on Kuminga, we're paying him a decent chunk of money just to see what happens. I don't think it's wrong necessarily to take a bet on a 23-year-old athlete who has shown promise, has shown even the ability to show up in the playoffs as he has when he's gotten those opportunities occasionally. I do think it's interesting, as you mentioned, from 3, he's been spotty, but it's shown, at least, especially in 23-24, more than this past season, that he could hit the corner 3 pretty well. Again, most of his game is in that transition, good in isolation game. He can take people off the dribble, and he is very fast. So that's an exciting type of player to have, someone who can kind of go in for those dunks, maybe, like someone who could really draw the crowd's attention to. You're not going to be expecting him to be the primary ball handler on the team, so I'm not worried about things like his assist-to-usage ratio being average or whatever the case may be. That's not what we want him to do. Again, his 2-point percentage is pretty great, mostly because a lot of his shots come either at the rim or very short mid-range shots. He also had a pretty good clip from long mid-range at 44%. This is what you'd hope that maybe with good coaching and proper practice, he could move those long mid-range shots to be actual 3-point shots, and then maybe that percentage translates just a bit. He's above the 90th percentile at drawing fouls for his position, which again, to your comp of Jimmy Butler, that's exciting. You want a player who could be able to get to the free throw line. That's an underrated skill because they're free points that you get when you're able to hit them at a decent clip. However, the issue when I was looking at some of the stuff with Kuminga that you really hope, that's one of my biggest concerns with him, is that he is not a good free throw shooter. So let's hope that he could work on that and improve that if we were to make a move for him. Ultimately, it's gonna take a few days for us to find out. He officially becomes a restricted free agent ahead of Monday's negotiating period, which begins at 3 p.m. The Warriors have extended their qualifying offer to him, which is nothing. I think it's like 7 point something million. Definitely going to go for more than that. But the question is someone willing to offer him more than we're willing to offer him? And if we were to get him, it would likely need to be in a sign and trade, which would probably involve Warriors taking back Wiggins, which is kind of funny when we just got him at the trade deadline and possibly we're sending him back because he hasn't been a great fit down here necessarily. Not that he had a lot of time to gel just yet, but Kerr was a big fan of Wiggins, and Wiggins seemed to be great for that system. So, and fits their timeline a bit better as far as age goes. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about the Kuminga thing. I am open to just taking risk and seeing young players go. I'm not expecting us to win a chip this year, as much as we were joking about it before the show. I mean, again, you never know in the East, but I just want to see what these players can become and take risks on young players, because when you take risks, sometimes it pays off and you're able to get a star with someone like Kuminga. Is there anything else you want to touch on Kuminga before we hop over to another topic here?
Yeah, just one last thing. Jonathan Kuminga, and a lot of people doubt him. I do also want to point out that he's not a fit in Steve Kerr's system. That's not to Steve Kerr's fault. You know, he's got his the way he runs his team. But Jonathan Kuminga has a lot of upside. It's very rare that you have the opportunity, any team, whoever wants to sign him, I hope that he get him, that you have the opportunity to sign a 22-year-old two-way player. For whatever reason, people think he sucks at defense because he gets scored on by the best players in the world, like LeBron James and shit. I don't understand what he's supposed to do sometimes. But he can play both ends of the floor, and he has a lot of potential. Now, the Miami Heat, if Eric Spoelstra were to get his hands on Jonathan Kuminga, it'd be game over. I know people don't like him. I understand that, but I would urge people to go back and look at the tape. Go back and look at not just what this guy does, but what he can do. Dude, he's literally getting just hampered, and he's still averaging 15 points, 5 rebounds, playing great defense. You know,
yeah, and some of his highest usage games on Golden State came when Steph was injured, and when Steph was injured prior to Jimmy Butler getting there, who's scoring the ball on that team? You know what I mean? Like, who are you guarding aside from if Steph's not there and Kuminga's the only option? I mean, it's a different system. It's a different world that he was living in. And also, it's to quote Jimmy Butler, it's a lot of it has to do with joy. And when you're playing in a system for a coach who you feel doesn't believe in you and has kind of made that apparent, or maybe doesn't feel like you're a right fit for his team, it can take away some of that joy that you might feel playing the game. And players are human. They play better when they are happy, when they're playing in a system that fits them. So hopefully if you were to come to the Heat, just a change of culture, the change of pace, the younger team with the different expectations, maybe we can bring out the best of Kuminga. And when Kuminga is at his best, he is a really, really exciting player to watch. I found this funny. I'm going to go ahead and share screen for the audience at home. Again, just some stuff that we talked about in the group chat. Quotes from Bill Simmons regarding this draft and regarding Kuminga. I'm sharing screen here so you all can see it. I'll read it though. Bill Simmons is pissed Kasparas fell to Miami at 20. This also references Kuminga. He fills the box score. He's just going to be good. It really is annoying to me. Then they'll sign Kuminga, and guess what? He'll be good for them too. Then all of a sudden we'll be like, Jesus Christ, we're back with the Heat. I thought we killed them. We thought they were dead. And I am a big Bill Simmons fan, but he is a Boston homer, as everyone knows. I love whenever Bill Simmons is angry about the Heat. I think he actually gives us more respect than a lot of other Boston homers, cough, cough, Kevin O'Connor, might give the Heat. I think he has an appreciation for what we can do with young talent. So seeing that made me even more excited. It made me want to sign Kuminga even more. And then lastly, I just wanted to show this just because it was hilarious again from Bill Simmons regarding Jakučionis. But as usual, somebody good in the draft falls to Miami. Jakučionis is good. Sean Marks should be arrested. Sean Marks is the GM for the Brooklyn Nets who had the opportunity to pick him before us. So just seeing those tweets, they or whatever they're called now that they're posted on X, but just seeing those posts from Bill Simmons made me laugh and made me even more excited for both Jakučionis and Kuminga, which brings us to the next topic, or one of our last topics for today that we're going to be talking about, just the general youth direction that the Heat have been going in. So we'll just cover this quickly as we've already been talking about all these things. But Bam is 28, Tyler's 25, Ware is 21, Davion is 26, Jaime is 24, Jovic is 22, Larson is 22, Jakučionis is 18. All these young players, Kuminga is 23. All these young players are going to have a chance to grow together in a system where there's less expectations and where they can kind of mold into a team together, into players that fit together. It's easier when players are on the same timeline. So that excites me. Alonzo Mourning was just talking about how Kel'el Ware has been in the gym nonstop, and getting stronger is a point of emphasis for him, which is important because he was great on defense, but one of his flaws was just how thin he was. He's a skinny guy. So him being stronger is exciting. I remember just watching him in that one game where we deemed him Timu Wemby, which is probably offensive, but pretty funny, where he averaged, it was one game, so 25, 8, 2, 0, and 2 in a game against Wembanyama. So I'm just really excited about that. Our older players, like we mentioned before, Terry and Duncan, those are expiring contracts, totaling $46 million. $46 million that are going to Terry and Duncan Robinson right now. Just saying that again out loud. Wiggins is one of the only other longer contracts we have, and as we can see, he's included in a lot of trade rumors, so not too worried about that contract. Overall, just quickly, any thoughts on the youth movement for the Heat, and who out of all those young players are you most excited for?
Well, I'm most excited to see Kasparas and Nikola Jovic go out and play a lot of minutes on the floor, hopefully, if they're running the bench unit. Watching those two facilitate and run the floor together as two guys that are playmakers is going to be really exciting, because Miami hasn't really had like a lot of great playmakers, and it just seems like they now have two really good playmakers. Especially Bam is an underrated one, but in that upper class where it's like, oh, this guy's someone who can run my offense.
He's more from like the free throw line, like top of the key, as opposed to like Jovic.
Yeah, exactly. Creating off pick and rolls, things of that nature. I'm also really excited for Pelle Larsson. I'm kind of a little bit high on Pelle Larsson. I don't know what he's going to turn out to be in the NBA, but I know he plays with a lot of effort.
Yeah.
He plays great defense, great footwork, great lateral movement, and he also has a lot of heart. He plays with a lot of emotion. That was mentioned about Vlad Godin earlier, and that's just a trend of the Miami Heat, is getting young, emotional players. And that's also, not to go back to beat a dead horse, that's also why it would be a perfect fit in this age range to pick up someone like Jonathan Kuminga and add him to the fold. Maybe take some of those younger guys and flip it for a young star. That's something that I feel like Miami should do if what they're trying to do is just go in this young direction. Now, how I feel about it, I always want to compete for the playoffs. I know people like lottery picks. I understand a lot of people have speculated that had we just missed the playoffs, we would have gotten a Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
It's rigged. We would have never gotten a Cooper Flag. Dallas gave up Luka Doncic. They sold the city soul for a Cooper Flag. One white for another white.
Yeah. One Europe white for one American white. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
they
funny,
like that American cheese. They didn't want the Swiss cheese anymore.
Yeah. They want. That's a good reference. I like that one. So basically, I think the Miami Heat should go this same direction. I know exactly what's going to happen. The day Giannis is asked for a trade, they're going to trade everybody away, and we're probably going to suck for like a year or two while having Giannis Antetokounmpo. But in my opinion, I think Miami should just, even if they're going to be mediocre, the East is going to be really weak this year.
Yeah.
They can still like gun for a 5th, a 6th seed, maybe even like a 7th seed, and then battle it out with the 8th and win the 7th seed. Something like that. I still see Miami competing this year, although people don't have them very high. Free agency isn't done. The trades aren't all done. So let's just see where all the dominoes fall. Right now, I'm very excited as a Miami Heat fan to watch the Summer League and hopefully watch these young guys put in some work.
Same. Yeah, and I agree, dude. It's going to be a weak East. I understand wanting to have a higher pick in the drafts, and I get that. But at the end of the day, if we're going that route, then you have to sell Bam, sell Tyler, and just start over. But you're not wasting a year of those guys. And I also think it's underrated. Two things. One, getting these young players playoff reps is huge. It's great for their development. As anybody who watches the game can see the stark difference in what the game feels like when you're playing in the regular season and when you're playing in the playoffs. So getting these players to be able to go to the playoffs, even if we're going to lose in the first round, it's still an experience for them to be able to battle through those things and learn from, which I'm excited for. I'm really excited to see where in his second season. I'm really curious to see how Jaime possibly bounces back from a bad sophomore slump. Those are two of the things that I'm on the lookout for. As you had kind of mentioned, maybe we'll go whale hunting. Maybe we'll try to make a trade for Giannis. We do have 5 of our own first-round picks as well as some young talent. So there's other teams who could definitely outbid us, like an OKC, possibly the Nets. Well, the Nets just use a bunch of their picks, but there's other teams that could outbid us if they want. But Giannis is going to have some say, and some of those teams might not be interested. So we'll see where we get when we get to there, if that happens. Nonetheless, I'm still excited for the current roster we have. I know some people are also talking about us saving cap space for free agency. I was going through the list of names for free agents, and the first few are Dame, LeBron, Beal, old, so I'm not really, and KD. So I'm not really too excited about their free agency in 2026 at the end of this next season. I mean, of course, if I could get LeBron on a cheap deal, I'll take him, but that's not what I'm looking for. Trae Young, Luka, Zach LaVine, Harden, Aiden, Fox, Aaron Gordon, FBV, and JJJ are some of the other free agents in that class. I'd imagine most of those guys are going to re-sign. And that brings me to the point of, I don't know if worrying about cap space for free agency matters. I think it's more about having good prospects and tradable contracts, because with the way that the league is structured now, most players are taking their extension because the team that they're on can offer them more money. So you're like, Giannis is a free agent at 27. Maybe he's one of those different people. I could actually imagine him being cut from kind of a different cloth, being willing to say, F it, I'll make my own decision in free agency. But more than likely, he'll probably take a really big, expensive extension and look for a sign and trade somewhere if he is looking to get out. So just for people to like kind of not worry too much about cap space and those things. I don't remember the last time there was a big free agent move. It's been a while in terms of like actual stars moving in free agency. That's not how people are moving most times these days. But to end it out, this has been a long pod. We have 2 quick things that we're going to end out on. First and foremost, George, what has burnt you out this week?
Man, I'm not going to lie, work has been pretty busy. We're about to get into a trial this week. It's about to be even busier. So it'll probably be the same answer next week if you were to ask me. Yeah.
Yeah, work.
But nah,
I get that.
work
For
is
me,
tough right now.
for me, I just turned 30 recently. I've had a lot of friends making jokes about getting older and it's all downhill from here, silly stuff. And I've been overly optimistic about feeling good about my 30s. And then like 3 days ago, I woke up with like a pinched nerve or something in my back. I almost like couldn't stand straight. That's never happened to me ever in my life. And I'm like, holy heck, maybe being 30 does suck. I don't know. Maybe it is all downhill from here. It really changed it. I'm still a little like sore back there and I have no idea why. That burnt me out this week. And then last but not least, I want to just think about something on a more positive note. What are we fired up for? What's got you fired up going into this week or just going into the summer in general, George?
Tonight at approximately midnight. So, tomorrow, midnight. Tomorrow night, whatever. Tonight, Charles do Bronx Oliveira will attempt to recapture the lightweight title. And let me tell you something, I'm fired up. I mean, you've probably seen it all over my Instagram stories. I am fired up for this fight. I hope that Charles Oliveira wins this title. Oh my goodness, I'd give up a lot for it tonight. I'd give up a lot to see this happen. That's what I'm really fired up for. It's Do Bronx fight night. It's a blessing. We're alive, and Charles Do Bronx Oliveira will fight while we're all alive and breathing. That's a beautiful thing that people need to appreciate. That's
exciting stuff. That is exciting stuff. For me personally, what I'm very fired up about is we've already talked about it, but about 1 week from now, Summer League will be starting. I know that's a basketball nerd thing to say, but I am excited for the Summer League. I'm excited to see these young prospects, not just on the Heat, but to see some of these players like Cooper Flagg, to see, is Ace Bailey going to show up to Utah? Is he going to play there? Just BJ
He's going to be a man player, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for Summer League. I'm excited to see these young guys go and ball out and try to prove themselves. There's always a standout player who is unexpected during Summer League. So that's what I'm fired up for. That brings us to a wrap of this episode of the Burnout Basketball Podcast. I just want to thank all the people who made it this far, who have been listening along. I appreciate you all. I'm excited to be continuing this throughout the summer. We're going to be talking about the Summer League. We're going to be talking about some of the other players who are on the roster who won't be playing in Summer League. And we'll be having more guests, probably George again at some point, and probably some other friends as well. Thank you, George. Thank you for being here. And thank you all. We are out.
Go Heat!